Do you know your heritage? Do you know all the cultures that your family members come from?
With multiracial families more common, one woman is sharing her culture story, hoping it helps children embrace their heritage.
Tlingit-Haida. That means I am Tlingit, and no one can take that away from me.
Seattle's premier cancer treatment and research center opens a new wing designed in a novel way.
And it was just an open warehouse and a whole lot of cardboard.
New technology reveals these artifacts' native roots. Now, Seattle City Light has returned them to their rightful owner.
It's a good day for the Upper Skagit people and our ancestors.
These stories and more next on CityStream. Hi, I'm Tatevik Aprikyan. Welcome to CityStream from MOHAI, the Museum of History and Industry. We're here to learn more about the exhibit Roots of Wisdom, Native Knowledge, Shared Science. It explores stories from 4 indigenous communities detailing how traditional knowledge and cutting-edge science can be combined to solve current problems. More on that just ahead. Indigenous families are one example of multicultural or multiracial homes that are now more common for children to grow up in. In America, this family makeup is the fastest growing demographic. Seattle's Alyssa London understands that. She's from the Tlingit-Haida tribe and is a former Miss USA Top 10 finalist. She's also written a children's book based on her own culture story she hopes will inspire kids to be proud of their heritage.
Your tribe? Come on, Freckles. You aren't really part of a tribe, one laughed.
Story time at Lockwood Elementary brings characters off the page into real life,
Said Freckles with a cheeky grin.
Today's tale, Journey of the Freckled Indian, is about Freckles. It's based on author Alyssa London's discovery of her native heritage when she was sitting right here as a student 25 years ago.
In my Tlingit language, Tlingit-Haida, Yakyadiadi Yuchat Duasauch, Cha'ak Nahatsati, Daklawadi Ayachat, Angun Kwan Ayachat. So in Tlingit, I just said that I'm from the Tlingit tribe, that I'm eagle killer whale, and that my family is from the village of Angun, Alaska. Angun Kwan is how I said that.
Like most children who grow up in a multicultural home, London's life in Seattle as a kid included native events like tribal picnics and powwows.
I didn't realize it was something different until really the memory that precedes the start of this book, which was sharing about Tlingit culture with my parents during a show and tell, where they showed a video of Raven Box of Daylight, which is our creation story for Tlingit and Haida people. And at recess, then, like we say in the book, the kids made fun of me.
Through the book, Freckles becomes a relatable character for mixed-race children, reflecting the challenges London faced on the playground.
Do you know your heritage? Do you know all the cultures that your family members come from? Her classmates looked at each other confused. Well, if you don't know where you come from, it's hard to know where you're going.
This theme in the book is London's theme in life. She learned about where she came from through family, spending time with her Tlingit grandfather in Alaska to understand her roots.
There's a grandness to Alaska that is hard to describe.
That summer trip charted the course for her life's work to advocate the importance of honoring multicultural identities. She's traveled to more than 30 countries and earned a degree in race and ethnicity from Stanford University.
Just in your own language, tell that story, and then it'll be a permanent record.
In 2018, she founded her media company, Culture Story. London says there's more that connects us than divides us in the mixed-race world we live in. Through Culture Story, she creates videos, workshops, and books to showcase the beauty and vitality of Indigenous cultures all over the world.
It is one of my favorite things to talk to really anyone about. I love to ask, what's your culture story? And what I mean by that is, tell me about the core tenets or the themes that really define your culture, and therefore define, parts of how you live your life as a person who identifies with that heritage.
London says the core tenets are food, faith, family, fashion, and the arts, which includes song and dance, one of her favorite ways to teach kids about culture. Once the wiggles are out, it's a quick lesson in linguistics.
So it kind of sounds like cottage cheese, but you're going to repeat after me. Goodness sheesh. Goodness sheesh. Oh, thank you. You did awesome.
It's these cultural interactions she hopes will help childhood be more inclusive.
From a young age, be interested in knowing about their own culture and having a strong sense of personal identity, but then almost even more important, being open to people from other cultures.
You're German. Perfect. See, we're already getting the thought patterns going of what we can talk about in our classrooms later on, right?
After excited commentary from kids about their native identities, London leads them through affirmations as a confidence booster.
I am proud.
And hopes these phrases instill personal pride of being multicultural, something she says can be really tough growing up.
I mean, I struggled with being a mixed race Native girl basically until I went to Miss USA and had this moment in front of millions of people with the Tlingit gown, where it was like a very strong, definitive moment of I am Tlingit, I hut. I got to say that on national television. There are 229 different tribes. Tlingit, I hut. I am from the Tlingit tribe. Like, that was profound for me because it took that big of a moment, honestly, to basically heal from having to explain to so many people, even through college, like, yes, I'm Native American, that's why I'm helping out with Stanford Powwow, for example, or I didn't like having to explain my connection to my culture over and over again.
In 2017, London was a top 10 finalist at Miss USA.
Alaska.
Her evening gown robe had her clan crest, the killer whale, and was designed in the Tlingit red tribal color.
It was the only time in the pageant that I wasn't incredibly nervous because I was just really proud and centered, and I just felt like I had my whole community on stage with me.
Newspapers in Alaska proudly put her on the front page, celebrating this achievement for Indigenous people.
That made people emotional too because, I mean, the newspapers in Southeast Alaska are written in English. That hadn't been a Tlingit headline.
London's national pageant platform was to showcase the vitality of Indigenous cultures and mixed race heritage.
When I was Miss Alaska, I got to go to like some hospitals, and I got to go do school visits. And at that time, you know, kids would listen to like whatever I had to say because I had a crown on my head. It was fun times. But I didn't have my own book. I was reading other books that I either found in the classroom or I started to bring some along with me. But I didn't find a story that helped land my message.
Now with her own book to spread her message, whether she's wearing a crown or native regalia, just like Freckles says,
Tlingit, I hut. That means I am Tlingit, and no one can take that away from me.
She hopes through her story, Freckles inspires these kids to proudly display their culture story on the pages of life they write, no matter where the journey takes them after school. Alyssa recently hosted a special called The Culture is Indigenous Women. You can stream it on MSNBC and Peacock. She's also working with a publisher to write more books and expand her culture story company to continue sharing stories that amplify conversations about identity. The identity of Fred Hutch is undeniable. Seattle's premier cancer treatment center opens a new facility with an array of unique features. That's next on CityStream. Each year, 1.6 million Americans are diagnosed with cancer, according to the CDC. Fortunately, Seattle has incredible treatment facilities to help people beat the disease and also researchers working to find a cure. The Fred Hutchinson Cancer Research Center recently opened a new facility, and as Nicole Sanchez explains, a lot of thought and care went into this building.
Steve Lovell knew something was wrong when he started running again after a knee injury.
And I found I could only run for a block or two and just got really fatigued. And I thought, well, you know, you're getting older, it's gonna take some time, just push through it.
That was the first sign. The second sign was when he went to donate blood and they warned him something was off. The technician couldn't see any red blood cells. They recommended he see his doctor.
The doctor herself called me at 8 a.m. the next morning and said, I need you in today, and you might be prepared, you may need to go to the hospital tonight.
Steve found out he had a type of blood cancer called mitodysplasia, or MDS.
It's something you really can't prepare for. You know, you hear the cancer word and immediately, you know, fear and apprehension and all that.
Steve ended up needing a bone marrow transplant, which he had in 2010 at what was then Seattle Cancer Care Alliance. SCCA and Fred Hutchinson Cancer Research Center merged in 2022 and are now known as Fred Hutchinson Cancer Center. The hardest part of having cancer? The recovery period, where he needed around-the-clock help.
I lived by myself in downtown Seattle, and they said, for about 3 months, you're going to have someone with you 7/24. And I thought, oh my gosh, I may not be able to do the treatment because I don't have someone.
Fortunately for Steve, his friends and coworkers at Alaska Airlines stepped up in a big way.
It was pretty amazing. I had a group of probably about 10 different caregivers who rotated around to make sure that I had the care I needed. And of course, the care at Fred Hutch is just phenomenal.
Steve is cured of his cancer, but he does suffer from some side effects from the treatment, and he comes in once a year for checkups. Because of the miracle Steve experienced here, he is giving back. He recently donated hundreds of volunteer hours over more than 2 years to help design a new 6-story building at the center. The goal of the expansion? To help make sure other cancer patients have the best possible experience while they go through what is likely the worst experience of their lives.
When you go on a cancer journey, you've never been that journey before. You don't know what to expect, and you can feel like you're losing a lot of control. And I felt like there were some things that we could do with the clinic building to really give back that control to patients, to make it a better journey for them.
The team of around 45 people spent more than 2 thoughtful years working to make sure everyone's perspective was included in the plan, from patients, caregivers, to staff.
Integrated facility design really takes into account the experience of the people who are in the environment and who are doing the work in the environment.
We were hands-on with the staff to come up with what would work. That's what I thought was unique up front. You know, and it started with pieces of paper. What's it going to look like? And then it moved to little scale mock-ups, you know, like little, you know, we would put different things and little furniture in and stuff like that, just like you would maybe a dollhouse or something.
But this dollhouse went full scale next. They literally built an entire floor out of cardboard.
We built out life-size mock-ups of the floors in a warehouse down in Des Moines.
And it was just an open warehouse and a whole lot of cardboard. And that meant building the sinks, building the tables, building the chairs, the walls.
We literally ran scenarios and, you know, what worked, what didn't work. On a Monday, we'd build it. Tuesday, we'd run scenarios.
And if we wanted to tweak something, we just tore the cardboard out and redid it.
Wednesday, we'd tweak things, and by Friday, maybe we had the design baked.
And we did that over and over for months and months.
The work might sound tedious, but when you see the 150,000 square feet of new space, you know it was worth it.
If you make things easier for staff, they're able to spend the time they need and focus on the patients. If the patients are in an environment that is less stressful, it's going to benefit their healing.
Good morning, Heather. How are you today?
What you won't see here, traditional waiting rooms. Instead, the entire design is aimed at cutting wait times and keeping patients in one space.
By just making sure the room is big enough to deliver all of that care to the patient, it means that the patient comes, they can relax, their caregiver has a space with them, we're bringing everything to them.
One of the other unique features of the new building is an automated parking garage. Patients pull up and a valet takes the car into an elevator system that parks it for them. The idea here is to save patients time and stress.
And then when the patients and families come out, they request their car is brought up for them, and they just drive off. Make it very easy and low stress.
All of that time traveling, checking in, waiting, that's all waste for the patient. It's non-value add time.
There are also a lot of large windows and soothing artwork to create a peaceful feeling.
We really did want to make sure that we brought light and hope and an atmosphere that supported the patient experience as well as the staff experience.
When this came up, I felt like this is what I need to do, because I need to give back. Putting in that kind of an effort makes it even more rewarding, I think. When I come over here, I just get a warm feeling of all the work we did. What's neat is it's here.
The new facility cost $320 million to build and opened in phases starting in March of 2023. All 6 floors are now open. We'll be right back. Welcome back to CityStream from the Museum of History and Industry. We're here to learn more about this exhibit, Roots of Wisdom, Native Knowledge, Shared Science. Let's bring in Deborah Romanak. She's the Chief of Exhibits and Interpretive Services here at MOHAI. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
It sounds like this exhibit is a mix of the old and the new. Can you give us a brief overview?
Well, this exhibit, which was put together by the Oregon Museum of Science and Industry, the Indigenous Education Institute, and the Smithsonian Institution National Museum of the American Indian, and in collaboration with 4 indigenous groups, is really important and really interesting. It's taking a look at the ways that indigenous groups are using their traditional historic knowledge and combining that with science to address a lot of the problems that we all encounter today, particularly challenges born of climate change and things like that, and addressing how we can live in better harmony and to greater effect with the land that we live on.
You mentioned a little bit of how to adapt and how to combat some of these issues that we're facing globally. Native indigenous people have harvested crops like quinoa and potatoes and beans and medicinal content from barks from trees. Is that something that knowledge can be used for to help countries that are struggling globally?
Absolutely. This exhibit offers a lot of great examples about how indigenous groups are using, again, their traditional knowledge married with scientific, cutting-edge scientific knowledge, and working with the land and with the water to bring back endangered crops, endangered species, medicines that come from the land and that we need to survive and that have been endangered through pollution and consumerism, et cetera. And so it's really useful, it's really necessary. I think it's the way forward, and this exhibition makes this clear.
Native history is significant to Pacific Northwest history. Is that one of the reasons why this exhibit is so important?
Absolutely. It really is a reason that we brought this exhibition here. As a local museum and representing the history of Seattle and the Puget Sound region, we know it's so important to tell local stories and a diversity of stories, but particularly of the first inhabitants here who continue to be here with the longest history of inhabitation. And so we really want to continue connecting with local indigenous groups and grow those relationships and be a place where we can facilitate the telling of their stories. And so while this exhibition features indigenous groups from around North America, including the Confederated Tribes of the Umatilla and the Eastern Band of Cherokee and Native Hawaiians, it also includes the Tlingit-Haida. And in addition to the story that's embedded within the original exhibition, we worked with some local tribes to bring out some of their stories, including the Tlingit-Haida again, but the Snoqualmie, the Snohomish, the Muckleshoot, and the Duwamish. And of course, there are 29 tribes here regionally, federally recognized, and many unrecognized. And I would say their stories are implicit here.
What do you hope visitors will take away from this exhibit?
I hope that visitors will take away a couple of things. I think it's a really great way to learn how to think critically about some of these really challenging issues that we have at hand. And beyond that, I hope they will get some notion of answers about how we might go forward in a respectful way to work with the land and the water in ways that sustain all of us, because we have a common history and we have a common future. So doing this together is really imperative, and I think this exhibition underscores this. And I like to think in the larger museum, I think it's really interesting to put this exhibition in contrast with one of our parts of our permanent exhibitions, True Northwest, the Denny Regrade, which is a really wonderful exhibition that shows these feats of civil engineering and the way that colonizers and settlers changed the land and the waterways here, but not necessarily to the best effect. And I think it's interesting to think about that history in conjunction with the histories presented here and the contemporary stories about how we can go forward in a good way.
And tell us how long this will be here so people can come and take a look.
This will be here for a little bit, for a while. It'll be here through March 3rd, 2024. So there is plenty of time, and we hope people do come. And there's a lot of great interactives here, lots of fun for kids and families and learners of all ages.
Deborah Romanak, thank you so much for explaining all of this and sharing all this insight. This is going to be a really great exhibit for families to come and take a look.
Thank you. We're really excited, and thank you for being here.
And from the roots of wisdom to returning artifacts. Next on CityStream, Seattle City Light returns ancient relics to a local tribe. Seattle City Light has returned nearly 400 artifacts to the Upper Skagit Tribe. The items were found at one of City Light's work sites in Skagit County. It's a reconnection thousands of years in the making. Brian Callanan has the story from New Halem in the North Cascades.
A tour of the Upper Skagit River provides an impressive up-close look at how Seattle City Light generates hydroelectricity. But if you look more closely, it's a trip back in time.
We can date it back to the last ice age when our people were moving into this area.
Scott Schuyler, a cultural and natural resources policy representative for the Upper Skagit Tribe, and Andrea Weiser, a senior archaeologist for Seattle City Light, are looking at clues from a historical mystery that surfaced in 2013 during a renovation of the Gorge Inn, an old City Light mess hall in New Halem.
Archaeological consultants were hired to go out and examine the ground where the building work was going to be done and see if any artifacts were in the ground.
Mixed in with some utensils from the 1920s era structure were nearly 400 artifacts and animal bones, indicating a Native American village was once here.
Our people lived and died at this site for literally 10,000 years.
City Light talked with the Upper Skagit, Soxweatl, and Swinomish tribes to try to confirm where these animal bones and tools came from.
Just speculating now, that may have been a point, that particular piece there.
Basketry or clothing that would help identify tribal affiliation more easily had long since eroded away to nothing in this soggy ground. It was only when scientists examined this sharpened stone point, likely once attached to a dart or spear, dating back between 4,000 and 9,000 years ago, that a breakthrough happened.
We had that particular artifact analyzed for protein residue, blood residue, and they did find that it was goat blood. And that was a great result because we already knew that the name New Halem is actually based off of a native language name, Dweleb, which was the village that was located in that area.
That village's name, meaning goat snare, finally tied the origin of the artifacts to the Upper Skagit Tribe, who hunted goats for meat and wool clothing. But that's just the start of the story.
This legislation transfers the ownership and curation to the Upper Skagit Tribe, where...
In March, the city of Seattle authorized returning the artifacts to the Upper Skagit Tribe. The city is paying to have them stored at this curation facility at the North Cascades National Park Ranger Station in Marble Mount.
It's the right thing to do. I mean, that's really what it comes down to.
State law says the owner of the land where artifacts are found is the owner of the artifacts too. But after a decade of research, the city wanted to set the record straight.
To me, that's what's important about it. It's correcting an inequity in the ownership of the artifacts.
That correction means a chance for connection for the Upper Skagit Tribe, which plans to bring younger members of the tribe to Marble Mount to see their family history.
It's important that we lay a foundation to preserve, protect, enhance our culture where we can, ensure that they have the opportunities for learning and to partake in this culture that has extended for the last 10,000 years in the Skagit Valley. Disturbing of our ancestral sites is always bad, and we prefer not to have that occur, of course. But in this particular case, one of the great positives is the fact that we do have access to this.
Preserving the rich cultural history of the Upper Skagit River is something that local tribes and Seattle City Light will be working on together for many years to come. But they say they need your help too.
People get really fascinated by items that represent history, but just picking things up and taking them home is not the right thing to do.
It's also a violation of state law, but thankfully, this message is already hitting home as news of the New Halem discovery spreads. This stone fish club was returned to the tribe a few months ago.
And so people have been returning artifacts to us since the first story came out, so that's been a great positive thing.
These are sacred lands for the Upper Skagit people, central to their religious beliefs and origin stories. The tribe calls this an entry to the Valley of the Spirits. Spirits that Scott Schuyler says have to be pleased with a reunion that's long overdue.
It's a good day for the Upper Skagit people and our ancestors.
For now, only tribal members are permitted to view the artifacts, but the Upper Skagit Tribe says it hopes to build a museum in the future to display these objects to the public. We'll be right back. That wraps up this edition of CityStream from MOHAI. If you'd like to see more outstanding Seattle Channel programs, go to our website, seattle.gov, and search for feature shows. I'm Tatevik Aprikyan. Thank you for watching.